What's up, guys? Welcome back to Boost Brothers Garage and welcome to a beautiful spread of 240 K-swap parts. David, what are we talking about today?
Talking about everything going into making this swap happen.
And why it's better than an SR?
Oh, we still have to talk about that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty clearly better than an SR.
Much better. We're going to tell you why. Stay tuned. If you guys are tuning in for the first time, behind me is David's S13 240SX time attack car. It previously was an SR swapped car. He is now K-swapping it. He is going to be continuing to run in the Grid Life time attack series. We did an intro to this car. I'll post a link at the end of the video if you guys want to get caught up, but there's a lot that's going into it, including the K24, a Borg Warner turbo, a BMW DCT transmission, etc., etc., etc. Today we want to tell you why David decided to go with a K-swap instead of keeping his SR and building it to make the same power that the K-swap potentially can. And tell you why you should be K-swapping your 240 instead of thinking about the SR. Before we do that, David, do you want to show some of the stuff that's come in? I know that you guys are anxiously waiting for us to actually start assembling the car, but the main problem now is what, the oil pan you're still waiting on?
Yeah, I got another 2 weeks for the oil pan.
2 more weeks till the oil pan gets here, and then we can really start to get to work. But since the last video, you have gotten a lot of really cool stuff. I guess a good place to start, we talked a little bit in the last video about some of the stuff you were getting from Seems Legit Garage. They kind of specialize in BMW and especially BMW DCT stuff. So these three things here, you want to explain those a little bit?
Yeah, so this is the Seems Legit Garage paddle shifter kit.
This thing is so nice. Honestly, the best feeling paddle shifters I've ever experienced. That's including Porsches and, you know, factory cars, aftermarket stuff. It's definitely going to be going on my next build, which is going to be very, very special. But at this point, only David and my patrons know what that is. So, yeah, these badass paddle shifters. It's got a nice billet mount, real nice carbon paddles. It's magnetic.
It's the most tactile switch in the world. They don't make a switch more tactile than this. I can't tell you the amount of hours I spent the other night just going.
That's what I said. The minute I came over and he showed it to me, I was just sitting there playing with it for like 5 minutes. I just couldn't put it down. It feels amazing. So on top of the paddle shifters, what else do you need to make the BMW DCT work?
So we need a way to couple the 3-lug output on the output shaft from the transmission to like your standard drive shaft, your 4-bolt drive shaft. Seems Legit Garage has a beautiful, almost as beautiful the paddles solution for that.
And then one of the most important pieces is the Htg Tuning Dct Controller. This is going to be the brains behind the operation and make sure that not only you get to manually shift when you want to, but it's going to also replicate all of the auto shifting that the BMW had from the factory.
Yep, that's the goal. It's going to be fully paddle shifted and communicate via CAN bus to PE's new ECU coming out, but more on that at another time.
Next up is the K20 oil pump, which you use in rear-wheel drive swaps to get rid of the balance shafts. Are there any other benefits to this?
Higher RPM use, they're better. Front-wheel drive guys will still convert to these, you know, like your Accord guys. But mainly for us, it's to clear up room for a subframe for a rear-wheel drive application.
Because you're getting rid of the balance shafts, you have to also do that guy.
Yeah, I don't know if it's 100% necessary, but I do feel like when you're getting rid of the balance shafts, you should probably upgrade to your damper. This actually is not a fluid damper.
What?
Yeah, this uses rubber O-rings in it. It's tunable, it's rebuildable, and it's recertifiable, if that's a word.
All right, well, let's keep chugging along here so that we can get to the meat of the video that I'm assuming a lot of people came here for, which is why K versus SR. So what else do we have? We have some K-Power coolant and oil stuff here. What do we have?
So this is the K-Power rear oil adapter. It's a beautiful billet piece, but Basically, to clear the firewall, you're going to need something that routes coolant directly to a right angle out of the head. So this is just so you can convert a front wheel drive engine to a rear wheel. I'm going to be using the heater core outlet to feed my turbo, and then I'll return that with a little track tough fitting back to my thermostat housing. Other K-Power goodies are this.
This thing's nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we have to make cast manifolds for our 07K swaps, and when I saw this, that's one of the first things I said was, wow, this is a really nice casting. And this radium fuel rail, which is also a real nice billet piece. Anything special beyond just allowing you to use AN fittings and it being a larger size and just really pretty?
Well, it does have a place for the factory fuel pulse damper.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Right in the middle of it. Other than that, no, it's just pretty.
Which
and I needed a fuel rail.
What size injectors are you planning on running?
I'm going to run ID1000s.
Oh,
or
boy.
they're 1050 XDSs.
The new ones, the nice ones.
Yes, they will be running on E85, and I think that'll be enough to get me to 400 horsepower. I may have to bump up the fuel pressure a little bit from what I was running on the SR.
So we've got the intake, we've got the transmission stuff, the oil pump. Now we move on to the exhaust, and we're gonna build our own tubular exhaust manifold to work with the K24 and the Borg-Warner turbo. Just remind everyone, which Borg-Warner are you running again?
So I'm running the EFR 7163 twin scroll, and the reason we have to build a manifold is because the only manifolds out there right now for this sort of swap are for the G series, the Garrett turbos, and their V-band is actually different than the Borg-Warner V-band. You may be able to get away with it, but they do have different lips and the way they interface with each other. But I still wanted to keep my twin scroll. I don't want to switch to the V-band housing. Luckily, we found that a company called Treadstone Performance offers a cast stainless collector, so I don't have to weld any crazy stuff. That's twin scroll, and it was only like $140.
Yeah, I mean, it's it looks like a quality casting. I wouldn't say that some of the beveling and some of the porting or, the matching they did in there, it's not as nice as a billet piece that you're going to see, but the price is way better. It's going to work well for the application. So just know if you go this route that
it needs some massaging.
It needs a little massaging.
But it's $140. So.
Which, hey, what are you going to do? You got a mild steel collector.
Yep.
And then we obviously have two great big giant boxes of elbows here. They're all 90s, but they're different radiuses. We have short radius and long radius. So these Sked 10 will butt right up to this collector. It's Sked 10 as well. And then we've got, a 4-foot section of Sked 10 pipe here. Is this 304 or 316?
It's 304.
304, okay.
Next thing, got to touch on the throttle body. I'll be running drive-by-wire. It's a 74mm Bosch throttle body, and it adapts with a K-Power Industries adapter.
For all my Porsche fans out there, this is actually an OEM 997 GT2 RS throttle body, which, hey, that's pretty sweet.
Perfect for the channel.
That's right. Now, let's talk about why the K-Swap is superior to the SR for the 240. And we're not talking about just the potentials of the engine. We're talking about the upfront cost, and then especially the cost when you go to build the engine. If you have an engine failure, everything that you do from the time that you swap the engine, you have to take that into account. And that's a huge part of it. So first, let's just talk about the overall upfront cost.
We made our spreadsheet to compare the two engine choices. There were a few things that we had to keep constant that you're going to need for both. You're going to need an upgraded clutch for an SR or K. You're going to need a turbo setup that's not stock.
Which means for the SR, the engine, the pricing for the engine and transmission that we're talking about does not include the turbo.
Correct. eBay prices are like $6,500 for SR swaps.
eBay SRs are silly right now.
Yeah, but we're going to go on Facebook Marketplace what you could realistically buy these for.
$4,000.
$4,000.
Engine, transmission, no turbo.
Correct.
Okay. So what other parts do you typically need for an SR swap that doesn't necessarily come with that $4,000 engine and transmission setup?
I'd say mainly you're going to need transmission mounts, engine mounts, and then to really push a little bit more power, like in the mid 300s, it'd be like ARP head studs and a metal head gasket like a Cometic.
Okay. And when we added all that stuff up, it was right around $4,500.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't include your ancillary stuff, your hoses and, you know, fittings and everything, but that is a wash between an SR and a K. So this isn't necessarily a, you know, grand total of exactly what you're going to spend to swap a car. It's more of a, these are the hard parts and this is why the K makes more sense.
Yeah.
I guess we can go ahead and start talking about the K and the pricing, and then we can elaborate a little bit about the capabilities of each engine, because I think that's important in the decision-making process as well. We've got about $4,500 to get the SR into the S chassis. And what have you found out so far doing this swap? What's the number for the K series, and you know what does that consist of?
I'd say to make a comparable K series, it's going to be $5,000.
So $500 more.
It's $500 more. You do have more headroom. The transmission you'll be using, which is the E36 5-speed, has more headroom in it, and the engine has more headroom. And the biggest thing is you can get parts for it. I was so used to working on SRs where you gotta, you know, go to specialty parts people, but this K stuff, I've been going to AutoZone. I've been getting stuff from everywhere, and I mean, I get parts from Honda dealerships right down the road. It's really nice.
So specific to the swap, when we looked at the pricing, we used the TF Works swap kit, right? Which that comes with a flywheel. It comes with the engine mounts. It comes with the adapter for the E36 trans. It's everything you need except for what? The intake manifold?
Yeah, you'll still need the K Power Industries intake manifold. You'll still need a throttle body.
And that was all included in the $5,000. Yeah. Okay. So basically, at the end of the day, you've got a $500 difference between getting the SR in the car and getting the K24 in the car. With that being said, why do you believe that it makes sense to spend $500 more, which is, you know, roughly 10%, to go with the K24 over the SR? The guys that have seen some of our videos know that you had a rocker arm failure on your SR. That's what took you out this season. That's somewhat common. But when you started to look at repairing the SR, upgrading it to reach the power levels that you wanted, why did it make more sense to just ditch all that stuff and go this route?
So I think the biggest thing to point out to begin with is that when you're going for that, you know, mid 300s power level, you know, the SR does make a good argument, dollar for dollar. But like I said, the biggest thing is parts availability, engine availability, because you start to realize engines are wear items. I mean, you're gonna have engine failures on track. You know, you're always one money shift away from needing a block or needing whatever. And I would rather have an $850 engine that's disposable that has a bunch of parts that I can reuse than a purpose-made engine that's, you know, $4,000 a pop, or, you know, say I can get a long block for $2,500. But also it's availability. I go to the engine importer, you know, near me, and they had 25 K series and 2 SRs, and I mean, they're only going to get more scarce, and people are only going to keep blowing up SRs.
So you say 350. Like 350 is close to the safe limit for an SR, and you're going to be running more boost to make that power on an SR than you would on a K24. The SR transmission, from the research I did, 400 horsepower, wheel horsepower is about the limit, and even there a lot of people recommend using a clutch that isn't overly harsh so you don't, you know, rapidly overload the transmission. So with that being said, you know, 350 wheel, we'll call it, as the safe limit for the SR in stock form before upgrades, which, you know, I think what Dave was trying to say was if you have a S chassis and you just want to make 350 wheel horsepower and you're going to have a street car and you're just going to have fun with it, you know, the SR might be the better way to go. But the minute you start looking above and beyond that, the K starts to make more sense. And what are the limits on the factory internal K24 and the E36 transmission that you'd be utilizing at that price point?
Really, I think it's around like the mid 400s that it's really safe for. And we have to put a little disclaimer. We're talking about road racing. We're not talking about drifting, or we're not talking about, you know, something where you're getting on the car for a little bit, doing some pulls on the street or whatever. That's all great, but what we're talking about is, you know, being a lot for minutes at a time.
Yeah, 30-minute track sessions. Just beating and beating on these engines.
And this whole swap idea came about when I was starting to build my SR and I was going to do the VE head swap. Mm-hmm. And you start looking at, all right, to get an engine that flows like a K24, you need to do the VE head swap and to get rid of the floating rockers. The VE head swap is what makes the SR really reliable. But then you start looking at the cost of those heads, and you're paying over $1,000, $1,500 for a head. And then you start thinking, well, what if I damage that head? And, you know, then you're out that consumable where, you know, I can go get one of these whole engines for $850.
Yeah.
And, you know, you start looking into, you know, the intake manifolds people use for the SRs, like the Mazworks, you know, and there's another $1,000, $1,500, whatever those cost. And, you know, the price just started snowballing out of control, and it just really made sense to, whoa, I'm not glued to the SR. Let's just take a step back, and I don't like things because they're rare or unique. I like things because they work. So whatever engine's going to give me the most horsepower and seat time per dollar, that's the one to go with.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting an SR in your S chassis because, you know, that's the JDM way and that's, you know, the unobtainable things that we couldn't have, but we're looking at it a little differently. This isn't just, you know, a cool street car and you know, an ode to what they had in Japan. This is for all-out performance and the best way to go about that. The best potential for making power at the lowest possible price because neither of us are rich. Even though I play with Porsches, I play with the cheap ones. David, I think you said that once this build's done, you're going to go through and you're actually going to do a full cost analysis and share that with people?
Yeah, I'm going to do a definitive part number, where you get the parts, and how much they all cost to really get you guys set up so you don't have to pay shipping from the same place multiple times like I paid.
Hey, someone's got to be the guinea pig, right? David, I guess that's probably a good place to leave off the video. I think the comment section is going to be...
Sorry, every time you looked at the camera, I looked at you. Every time. Oh God.
I think the comment section is going to be a little out of control on this one. There's going to be a lot of fanboys going after each other, and you know, some of you guys are going to be right and some of you guys are going to be wrong, and that just is the way life is. So if you are excited to see this build progress, make sure that you subscribe and make sure you look out for the 240 Time Attack build series, along with all other fun stuff, our 07K Porsche swaps, our upcoming very special secret prototype race car.
Saying too much.
That's too much? Okay,
too much.
I gotta stop there. Anyway, as always, thanks guys, and yeah, we'll be seeing you soon.
If you've ever blown a rocker arm on your SR, go ahead and leave a comment. Guys, the comment section is lit.
If you know who we're referencing, good for you, you're one of our people.